So I'd like to welcome to the stage our first speaker, and he's ready to go. Ready? Blair, Wilcox, come to the stage.
Unfortunately, my beautiful slides are not quite ready yet. Ready? All right. So we know how to decarbonize the grid. Fundamentally, what do we need to do? Build more renewables. But my hot take for you tonight is that the wholesale market is not set up to support this future, and we got to take care of that. And that's because the price of electricity that the generators get paid for every megawatt hour they produce in every hour is based on how dirty the grid is in that hour. So if it's a really dirty grid at that hour, their prices are very high and they get paid a lot of money. But if it's very renewable, it goes down to zero. And that's because the prices that get paid are based on the last generator that has to come online to produce power in that hour. And so if it's an inefficient fossil fuel plant, it's going to be very expensive. And if it's a zero-cost PV plant, it's going to be essentially free. We can see this down in Texas, where the solar and wind penetration essentially define how much the price is going to be in that hour. So you can see down at 70% penetration, we get down to $0 a megawatt hour with no incentive to build more renewables. So these are the ISOs, the organized wholesale electricity markets, that organize how generators get told to operate or not and define the price. Every hour they run an auction to determine what the price of the electricity is going to be. Each generator bids in at their cost for what the next hour of operation would cost them, and the ISOs line them up from cheapest to most expensive, figure out what the load is going to be, and set the price based, again, on that last incremental generator. And so in this case, this is about $20 based on this last fossil natural gas plant that had to operate. And so everyone who was told to operate gets paid $20. Great, everyone's making money, at least a little bit, in that hour. But what happens if we add a whole bunch more solar? We have now shifted and moved a ton of natural gas off of the grid, which is great. We're doing what we're trying to do. And we have dropped our price from $20 to $0. We have now destroyed the incentive to actually build these projects. And we can see that this is happening in California as well, where prices go down to negative $60 in certain solar hours. This is a huge problem of destroying incentives for additional build-outs. So this is called the missing money problem, where something that we want to have happen can't get built because the market revenues are not sufficient to get that project financed and built. And so we're going to have to look for additional sources of money beyond the market to get paid and get these things built. And they're not going to be tax credits. We know that much. And they're probably not going to be the capacity market, which is how fossil fuel plants get paid, because renewable generators more or less are locked out of the capacity market based on capacity definitions. So we're really relying on RECs to get these projects paid for. Corporates and utilities will enter into power purchase agreements with renewable developers in order to get these RECs. So essentially what they will do is give a fixed price per every megawatt hour that comes off of those facilities, and then they will receive the RECs as well as the market price of the electricity in that hour. 99% of the projects that were built last year were built on the back of a power purchase agreement. And so as we see as the electricity value goes down and down and down, as we've been talking about, PPA prices at the same time have been going up and up and up based on interest rates, based on supply changes or supplier challenges. And what we need to realize is that essentially, once we're outside the market, all of these things are political. We need to understand how to work on the political action in order to get what we want in the long-term environment. And this includes the ISO itself. The ISO has its own rules of what it pays for and what it doesn't pay for. And we need to make sure that we're getting involved to make sure that what we want and the outcome we want gets paid for and the proper incentives are in place to get those things built. But in the meantime, what should we do with all this really cheap electricity? We have a lot of really cheap or curtailed electricity that is during these highly renewable hours. And so we should do something with it. The thing that the utilities also need to be involved in this, because right now most utilities are not giving real-time pricing, and so they're not giving the proper economic incentives for everyone to shift load or to deploy load during these really cheap hours. So what I'm doing in our intermittent abundance era is I'm working with electric boilers to displace natural gas from industrial processes. And I would encourage everyone here to think about what really cheap electricity some of the time means for your processes and for your operations, and for new ideas that are on the market even right now, as we work to ensure that we have long-term incentives to properly build out and reach that 100% renewable future.
Way to kick it off. Boy, I have a lot of questions. I don't have enough time for most of them, but how much negative money do you need before you start making money? Ask Uber? Okay. I think we... Okay. Sounds good. Everybody got that one. All right.